This program is scheduled for one fall.
Glorious! No, I won't give in till I'm victorious.
Must be that time of week again.
I will defend.
Hello, ladies and sirs. It's Thursday, it's 3 minutes past 9. So that must mean you're listening to This Programme is Scheduled for One Fall. My name is Silent Mark, I'll be your MC for this evening as per usual. And as per usual, I'll be joined by my two colleagues who will be talking wrestling for the next hour. We'll be talking all things SmackDown, all things other stuff, and also an update on the first ever Fantasy Wrestling League. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to my colleagues, and introducing first. Journalist, Beyond Radio's very own resident, author of Holy Grail, and person who came second in the Greg Lambert lookalike competition, it's Greg the Truth Lambert.
I also won it as well. I won the Greg Lambert lookalike competition as well as came second.
You came first and second.
I did, yeah. Just like to point out that Bobby Roode, after the amazing entrance at NXT TakeOver over the weekend, I was rather hoping, as Bobby Roode got that rising podium in the Barclays Centre, that I would have a chair with a mechanism that would allow me to ascend to the ceiling.
It's not going to happen, mate. It's not going to happen. We don't have the cash for that.
Oh well.
Sorry about that. Good week.
It's been a very good week indeed, yes, and it's been a great week in professional wrestling.
I'm
sure my colleague is going to be talking about his dubious opinions.
He will be. Speaking of which, introducing his opponent, human, co-host and co-author of Another Monday Evening Show, Alpha Omega wrestler, interviewer, weighing in at a weight slightly too much for his height, it's Mr. Evil Lewis.
Dubious opinions.
Well, you're wearing a bootie. Let me just set the scene here.
Feel the power, Greg.
The scene here,
Feel
listeners.
the power.
Evil Lewis is sat here in a sky blue Bootios t-shirt. I didn't even know those things actually really existed.
They do. It's not just a myth.
The box actually exists as well.
It does.
They're a real thing.
Mm-hmm. You don't have Big E's genitalia in a jar under that desk, do you?
I wish I did.
That just says it all, really.
I'll be far too busy to talk about wrestling if I did, I tell you that much.
He wouldn't be here.
Yeah, no.
He wouldn't be here.
I'd still be at home. As would you, and all the listeners at home.
My eyes are watering as we speak.
They would be. So, big week in wrestling, folks. Big week in wrestling.
Huge.
Let's start off the way we probably should start off. Let's talk about SummerSlam.
Summer Smash. Summerfest. Slam.
Let's talk about Summer Smack, shall we?
Why not?
Yeah, indeed. So we're going to go through this bit by bit. I'm going to mess the order around a little bit at the end, but let's go for the first match. Tag team, Enzo and Cass versus Jericho and Kevin Owens. Thoughts, sirs?
You looking at me? He's looking at me.
What have you cast your evil eye on at SummerSlam in general?
Oh, yeah, in general.
Because that match was it was all right, but there we go. There wasn't a lot to talk about.
I've said that.
The thing that caught my evil eye in that match, two things. One, Kevin Owens mocking Enzo's silly dance outside the ring was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And two, having Enzo and Cass lose in their hometown, which is not the result I think anyone was expecting.
Apart from me, because I actually predicted it last week that Owens and Jericho would win. If you recall, you can actually if you don't believe me, you can listen to the podcast of last week's show, now available on iTunes.
Indeed.
And possibly SoundCloud?
And SoundCloud as well. We've called it on there, though, to kind of go in with the podcast thing. This podcast is scheduled for one fall.
That's clever.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I thought it was clever.
That's
it worked.
A nice little kind of tweak there.
My thing with Kevin Owens, I don't think he works as a tag team person. I don't think it fits his personality. That's my opinion.
I currently love Owens and Jericho.
They're a great double act.
I shouldn't love them because, you know, you could argue that they're not being effective heels, but their backstage promos, picking on interviewer Tom Phillips, calling him, before SummerSlam, they did a promo on the pre-show where they basically called him a different name every time they addressed him. He was like Nathaniel, he was like Paul, he was Simon, he was... It was genius. And then since then, they've started referring to him as Philip Phillips, because why not? So... They're kind of a little highlight.
And that's going back to what Chris Jericho used to do back in the old days when he first became a major star in WCW during his Cruiserweight Championship run. And he would call everybody by different names. He called J.J. Dillon Jojo. He would call Dean Malenko in that brilliant feud he had with Dean Malenko about 20 years ago. He'd call him Stinko Malenko and all these sort of things that he's kind of bringing back now. And Kevin Owens is sort of bringing out the best in him, I would say. And it's quite clear to me that team has it.
What do they have?
It.
Okay, fair enough. They're very good.
Yeah.
I can see a possible feud coming down the line, though, between those two guys, because how long can they coexist for?
Indeed.
We'll see.
Indeed. But without wishing to hijack the show, Mark, let's not. I don't want to go for every single match.
All right.
I want to talk about things in general. I want to talk about the weekend in general. Let's just tear up the format. Tear it up. I'm going to tear it up.
He's tearing it up.
Torn it up. Right.
Wow.
Okay. This is what we're doing.
The ripping and the tearing.
I'm talking about this weekend in general, and basically, NXT TakeOver was a great show.
Good show. Very
really
good show.
Enjoyed it. SummerSlam had the best match of the weekend, though, in my opinion. AJ Styles versus John Cena.
I loved that match.
That was the highlight of the show for me.
I loved that match.
And I think people who still criticise John Cena, I'm really sorry. They need to wind their neck in, as they say, because I watch a lot of Neighbours, and they say that on Neighbours.
Do they say that in Neighbours?
They say that on Neighbours.
Wow.
I don't know what it means, but whatever it means, that's what they should do. Because once again, John Cena had an extremely dramatic match, and AJ Styles... The guy has been so dynamic since he joined the WWE, or particularly over the last couple of months. So I think it's actually since he went on the podcast with Steve Austin, and Steve Austin gave him one of his pep talks. You know, like Steve Austin sometimes does on the podcast. Yeah. He'll give some of these young guys pep talks. He'll tell them to step up to the plate. He'll tell them to seize the brass ring. Has anyone ever actually seized a brass ring?
I don't know.
I
think you can get ointment for it, though. Yeah,
it wasn't.
I think the doctor can prescribe something pretty effective for.
I mean, why a brass ring? Why a brass ring? You wouldn't give it to your fiance, would you? If you gave your fiance a brass ring, you'd get a slap across the face.
You'd get a well-deserved knockback. Wouldn't
So
you?
why are people so desperate to grab this brass ring? Why are you so desperate to shatter a glass ceiling? Surely you'd bleed.
Potentially, unless you're wearing protective clothing.
I don't understand these cliches. I don't get him. But anyway, the point is, AJ Styles has been absolutely exceptional. And without a doubt,
he's been good.
His promos have been dynamic. His performance in the ring have been amazing. And I cannot say enough about the man. He's phenomenal.
As much as I hate to agree with you, yeah, I agree.
I saw Cena come out on that match, and even though, you know, he was getting chanted at and this, that, and the other, you could see in his face that he knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't feel like he was in character. He really liked the fact that people were booing him of sorts. You could see it in his face.
He's getting a reaction at the end of the day.
But I really like the fact that he's like, I don't care what you think. I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of time for him at the moment. I don't know why, but I've got a lot of time for Cena.
He's a hard-working guy. You look at the amount of autographs he signs, the amount of Make-A-Wish events that he goes to for the kids. And he's a company man. He works extremely hard, and his matches are great. And he makes a few mistakes here and there. Sometimes you can hear him calling what he's doing and all this sort of malarkey. But at the end of the day, the guy knows how to tell a story. And I love the story between Cena and Styles. This whole Cena is the face that runs the place. AJ wants to be the face that runs the place, and now Cena's disappeared. So all you people who picked him on fantasy wrestling, you're feeling a bit silly, aren't you? Because he wasn't on TV this week and you lost points. But AJ Styles benefited from that, and he is now the face that runs the place. It's great. I love it.
It's good. It's good. The two big matches from SummerSlam, though, are the big ones that may not have gone to plan. Balor versus Rollins, Lesnar Orton.
Ooh, may not have gone to plan. Well,
that in itself is debatable and, kind of a hotly debated topic.
Are you willing to tell
the wrestling community?
Last week we had a big discussion about the merits of Finn Balor.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Lewis,
how overrated he is.
You were not impressed by him. Surely, after his victory over Seth Rollins, despite suffering a serious shoulder injury during the match, carrying on and putting on a very exceptional performance and winning the championship and then vacating the title with class and grace on the following night's Monday Night Raw, surely you must give respect to the Demon King.
You can't be serious, Greg.
I am not John McEnroe, Lewis, and yes, I am serious.
Well, as I said last week...
Give me your counterpoint to that.
He's overrated. as I said last week.
Well, that's what you said last week.
Yeah, and
Have
I stand by that.
Have you got any more substance to put? Have you got any ketchup to put on the hot dog?
He's that overrated that he got himself injured, winning his first title, winning the Kellogg's Fruit Winders title, and then had to vacate it the next day. That's not a champion with staying power and
You're obsessed with cereals.
No, I'm not.
You are obsessed with cereals.
It's not cereal. It's like fruit pulp. It's completely different. But the facts speak for themselves.
He didn't get himself injured. It's very hard to protect yourself when you get flung into a crowd barrier. It's like one of those kind of things. If you just land in the wrong spot, you're going to hurt yourself.
He got himself injured. He stuck his arm out. He thought, I know what I'll do. I'll break my fall by sticking this arm over the barricade as I get slammed into it. Oh, no, it's dislocated.
Well, look, okay.
Fair play to him. He actually pulled his, relocated his shoulder there and then, which was, not nice to watch. But, come on.
Respect for Balor. While we're talking about injuries has been, Mark, and I'm sure you'll agree with this.
It
has been the main topic of conversation in the wrestling world this week. A lot of things have been going on that have been, obviously coming out of SummerSlam. We had the injury to Finn Balor that we mentioned. It's going to leave him out for possibly around about 6 months while he gets well. Sasha Banks suffered a back injury, thankfully not as serious, but she did suffer a back injury in the match with Charlotte. And then, of course, we had, as you were alluding to earlier, in the main event, the situation where Randy Orton was really badly busted open.
Very badly.
By Brock Lesnar.
Who seemingly forgot he wasn't in the UFC anymore.
10 staples in Randy Orton's head.
Yeah.
And then we had, which I'm going to talk about a bit later, an interesting debate about the injuries and the style that is coming into the WWE at the moment, the more hard-hitting style where people are taking more risks, people are wrestling more in an independent style, which in itself is possibly leading to more injuries. Now,
it goes without
Lewis,
saying.
What's your view on that? I want to hear what your view on
Again,
this.
as much as I hate to agree with you, that does go without saying, I think, at the end of the day. The wrestlers on the independent scene, they're not wrestling 3 or 4 times a week, day in, day out, all year, traveling all around the country. They're doing, less dates, so they've got time to recuperate in between matches, in between shows. And also, they're younger, so they're proving themselves, they're making a name for themselves. By the time they get called up to WWE, in many cases, they're sort of half knackered anyway, arguably in some cases. Some of them have spent many years on the independent scene before they get to the big leagues of WWE. And at which case, they're probably already carrying a number of long-standing injuries with them. And at that point, you can't really sustain that kind of wrestling style. Definitely not when you're doing, like, what we're going to have like now nearly 2 pay-per-views a month between 2 brands. We've got hours and hours of wrestling, of content on WWE every week. So these wrestlers are wrestling, TV every week. They've got live house shows in between those. Every week they get 2 weeks a year off? They get something like that, if that. Unless they get injured, it's not sustainable, which does lead into something that I know you want to discuss, something that a lot of people in the internet wrestling community, as much as I hate to say that, because have been discussing since, Tuesday or Wednesday in our case.
Well, I will discuss that later on. I would like to point out that there are some independent wrestlers who do wrestle a full-time schedule. Particularly, there are some in Britain, the ones who wrestle, with all-star wrestling in particular, people like El Ligero, people like my man, the show stealer Nathan Cruz. You're going to see at Alpha Omega Wrestling, Golden Chance on September the 17th at Morecambe Winter Gardens when he breaks the stick streak. I digress. They are wrestling full-time, but they are learning the art of telling a story. They are learning how to entertain the crowd without necessarily putting their bodies under the kind of strain that leads to consistent injury. And that, to me, is the art of professional wrestling. Bret Hart has gone on the radio this week and criticised Seth Rollins and I don't know whether Seth Rollins is necessarily to blame for what happened to Finn Balor. He may be being unfair in this instance. But Bret Hart has said that Seth Rollins has now injured Finn Balor. He injured Sting. He injured John Cena. Seth Rollins, in wrestling this hard style, and of course he got injured himself as well and was out for a long time with a knee injury.
Yep.
What Bret Hart is saying, again, playing devil's advocate, not necessarily agreeing, is that Seth Rollins has got to start to learn to wrestle smarter, to not hurt people. Bret Hart is talking about how he went through his whole career wrestling a style which was an exciting style, a lot of good matches, but he never hurt anybody. So,
It's potentially
do
a
we
valid
need to see
argument.
more? I think we need to see more. Do we need to see more people, more wrestlers wrestling a less risk-taking style, which may not necessarily please the fans as much, but will not lead to people shortening their careers? That's an interesting debate, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Bret Hart, he's an old man now. Old people like to moan about stuff. Bret Hart likes to moan about stuff, and it seems a little bit like that's what he's doing. He does kind of have a valid point in there, but at the same time, you could say the same thing about AJ Styles, who, his move, the Styles Clash, has like legitimately broken 2 people's necks in the last couple of years, and almost killed those individuals. Now, again, when that happened, the same argument came up, which was it the fault of AJ Styles? Was it the fault of the opponent who maybe didn't know how to safely take that move? Did anyone really come out with a decisive sort of answer either way?
Well, the other side of the argument is it's wrestling. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
People say, oh, it's all fake. They don't have a clue what they're talking about. I got dropped. I talked about this last week. I got dropped on a Ram Slam by Jonny Phere 3 months ago on a hard ring, and I didn't land very well, and I've still got a pain in my arm 3 months on. I still have a bit of trouble with it. I know, and I'm not a wrestler. I don't do this for a living. I don't do this day in, day out. You are going to get hurt, but at the same time, someone like Randy Orton, for example, he got busted wide open.
Yeah, try telling him wrestling's fake.
Well, there is a possibility that was planned. That was planned. Randy Orton knew what he was getting himself into. Maybe not expecting quite so much blood, but at the end of the day, he's in the main event of a massive pay-per-view. I'm sure he's getting well compensated for doing that.
Yeah, of course, obviously.
With that in mind, did you notice Paul Heyman's face when that was happening?
Oh yeah, but Paul Heyman's amazing.
But either
it could be just a fantastic piece of performance from Paul Heyman.
Either he's a very, very good actor, or he was genuinely upset with what Lesnar did.
The first one.
You think it's
without a doubt, 100%. Yeah, Paul Heyman is the master of performance art.
Look at us agreeing. I don't like this, Greg. We're agreeing on a lot of stuff tonight.
Let's talk about TakeOver.
Okay.
Well,
TakeOver.
I like that first match.
The first match.
I was surprised by the finish. If I'm being honest, I would have liked to see my man No Way Jose beat Austin Aries, but
he didn't.
It was good
because again, he's not as good as you think he is. Austin Aries, proven, tried and tested. He won. He won the match. He was interrupted during his celebration by Hideo Itami, who, talking about injuries, he's been injured for like close to a year, I think, if not longer, and recently made his return on NXT Weekly TV. But he interrupted Austin Aries' celebration in the ring, hit him with the GTS, and I'm guessing those guys are going to tangle again further down the line.
Yeah, but Lewis,
what?
Why did Hideo Itami come out in a full, pristine suit and no socks?
That's a good point.
He had shoes, but no socks.
Yeah.
Why did Hideo Itami not have any socks? It's the biggest show of the year for NXT. Mm-hmm. He's in the back. He sees No Way Jose, his friend, put in the last chance for Austin Aries. He's clearly all dressed up to the nines, ready to run in and save him, and he couldn't be bothered to put any socks on. What's the matter with the man?
He's clearly too good for socks.
Maybe he doesn't have any socks.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been injured, hasn't he? So he hasn't got those paychecks rolling in. Maybe he can't afford the socks.
Maybe we should get the listeners to donate socks for Hideo Itami.
I think
Might
we should.
be an idea.
I think we should start like a socks for Itami fund. I can't even words.
Socks campaign for Itami. Yeah.
The guy needs some socks. Clearly.
GTS. Get the socks.
He could have had those horrible little footlet things on that hide inside your shoes that you don't see.
It's a possibility.
He could have done.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure that he didn't have any socks whatsoever, but socks in the conventional sense, he needs them.
Indeed. So, listeners, we want you to donate socks for Hideo Itami. If you'd like to send us them,
pray for Hideo.
Pray for Hideo. GTS does not stand for go to sleep. It stands for get the socks.
It does.
For Hideo Itami. Hashtag get the socks. Please donate them to. Have we got an address?
Carry a pigeon to Beyond Radio Towers, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if we do have an address to send things to.
Make them white with a little with a red circle.
Yeah,
on it.
But realistically, do we really want to get loads of socks through the post?
Yeah, I think we should, and I think we could then send them. We could maybe go to Brooklyn. We'll go to a takeover, present them to Hideo, and I'm sure he would appreciate it.
Fair enough.
Of course he would.
We'll have a think. Let us know what you think about what we've been talking about. 07399 085508 or email studio@beyondradio.co.uk. I'm going to break this up for a second. I'm going to play a bit of music. You guys calm down, and we'll come back.
But I wanted to tell him about how wrong he was about Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura.
And you can do that after this.
Okay.
We'll be back in a second, I promise. What news was that then, Lou?
Beg your pardon?
Whose music was that?
That was Big Boss Man, obviously.
There we go.
Come on.
Just testing you.
Yeah.
Just testing you.
So Silent Mark, the wrestling show host who doesn't know about wrestling.
I have no idea. That's why I'm hosting. It's why I'm hosting.
Who could forget the jailhouse match from SummerSlam 1991? You don't forget that, do you, Mark?
Never.
Many people have tried.
You never saw it, did you?
Never.
Oh,
I was 6 at the time.
No excuse. You had the WWE Network at one point.
At one point, yeah.
Yeah.
When he put the Mountie in jail, and then the Royal Canadian Mounted Police complained because they didn't want a Mountie as a bad guy portraying the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in a bad light. I don't know. Wrestling is too politically correct these days, Mark. I'm going to have a rant about that later.
Okay, fair enough. Well, one thing that you want to tell him how wrong he is about Samoa Joe.
No, we were talking about NXT Takeover.
Yeah.
So the obvious thing to lead into with that would be obviously the main event. Shinsuke Nakamura, who Greg seems to think is overrated because he's a fool, versus Samoa Joe, who's your best mate, who lost his NXT title to aforementioned Shinsuke Nakamura. So how do you like them apples?
The king of soft style.
No, he's the king of strong style.
The king of incontinence.
What's this thing with incontinence?
Because he just shakes and quivers, and it's quite clear that he hasn't been.
Hasn't been?
He hasn't been.
Where hasn't he been?
He hasn't been before he came. He
been all over the world.
He never went before he came to Brooklyn. He should have gone before he came. Seriously.
Maybe he didn't have time.
And then he wouldn't be like quivering and shaking like he needs to go. You know what I mean? Kanye West on violin should have told him.
I don't think that was Kanye West.
It was Kanye West. Stealing the show as usual. Kanye West has to be everywhere.
I don't think it's cool to say that, Greg.
It was Kanye West.
It
looked like Kanye West.
Can we move on from this before we get in trouble?
All right. The one thing I want to ask, which women's championship match was better, NXT or SummerSlam?
I think NXT.
Women's championship match. Oh, without a doubt. Bayley versus
I thought
Sasuke,
NXT as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't rate the SummerSlam match in the slightest.
It was filled with mistakes.
Yeah.
They can do better.
They can, and I've seen them do better. The women's tag team match as well. Thoughts on that?
No.
Becky Lynch lost as usual.
Yeah, there we go. There's a surprise.
Like we said. The only prediction I think I got wrong last week, actually, was the tag title match on SummerSlam.
Okay.
Where I did actually think the club, Craig Collins and Festus, I thought they would win.
Well, technically they did.
But they didn't.
But technically they did.
Well, I thought they'd win the titles.
To be fair, I thought it might have been the time for the New Day to lose their titles, but clearly not. Clearly the power of positivity reigns strong. And all those bootios that they're eating.
I feel bad for the club, though. I don't know why they had to turn them into Bunsen, Honeydew and Beaker, just to try and give them a little bit of pizzazz. You know, isn't it not enough that they can beat people up?
I did wonder why one of them came outside going.
I mean, usually I'm okay with gimmicks.
Yeah.
I am okay with a bit of outrageousness, but you know, there's people who need it, and I don't think the club do. I will talk about someone who does need it though shortly.
Okay. Your thoughts, Lou?
On that match?
Yeah.
Again, like I said, I think that I thought that the New Day would lose, but they didn't. And I think that Gallows and Anderson currently are resorting to basically high school humour. They're coming out talking about feeling testy and how it's going to be nuts and Big E's ring postitis. It was kind of amusing at first, but after a while it just kind of becomes like a 12-year-old telling you a joke they heard in the playground that isn't funny because, it's knob gags, basically.
Carl Anderson does look like Craig Collins, though.
I don't know. I think Craig Collins is wider and does chest day more often.
I'll take your word for that.
Craig Collins has an incredible set of breasts. You can't argue with that. Come on.
I haven't looked.
How can you not? They're there for all to see.
Wasn't he one of yours at some point?
Well, he was until he decided that he could go on without me, and now he's on the shelf with a bad shoulder.
So many people have done that. So
Yeah.
many people have turned around and said, you know what, I think we can do without him.
I know, and they've lived to regret it.
Are you sure?
Well, like I said, he's not wrestled ever since my man Chris Ridgway pretty much tore his rotator cuff. And I then danced around him in the Winter Gardens in an Eric Morecambe style and had a whale of a time doing it. I have no remorse. He deserved it. If he doesn't want my guidance, then what can I say?
You do know he's going to be back, right?
One Man Riot. Haven't heard from him since. He's the one man quiet.
Oh, he will be back. He just will.
Well,
we're going to go on with the fantasy wrestling in a second. We did get an email during the week, gents.
Really?
Yeah.
What, we actually got
We
one.
actually got fan mail during the week.
I am stunned.
We have a group on Facebook.
It's the official This Programme is Scheduled for One Fall Facebook group.
Search for us. And
Get online,
you'll
like
find
it.
us. We did get an email from a gentleman called Keith. He says, hi, Mark, Greg, and Louis.
Louis?
Genuinely, he
Who's
put,
Louis?
He genuinely, he put Louis.
I don't know this Louis guy. Who is he?
I think he means you, but just wanted to say I heard the show last week and really enjoyed it. I've been a fan of wrestling for many years now. I've got most of the action figures and a few replica belts too. It's nice to hear a show like this on the radio. I would love to be involved with the show. Is there any chance I could take part? Be like a show mascot or something. I could be the hottest free agent in community radio. Hope you're all well. Keith Slater.
Keith Slater.
Keith Slater.
Keith Slater.
Keith Slater.
Keith Slater, yes.
You having a laugh?
No. The email came from Keith Slater.
Well, Keith, I think I speak for myself and Mark and Lewis when I say sod off.
I'll go with that.
Also, listen, Keith. It's Lewis. Evil Lewis. Louis, honestly.
All right, mate. Come on.
What?
Just calm down.
Get it right. Recognise.
You're fine.
Recognise.
You're fine. Right. So, Greg, over to you. It's now time for...
Fantasy wrestling
Indeed.
on the
We
radio.
We need a thing for this, surely.
Report.
We do.
Week 1.
Hang on, I'll try and find a bed. Carry on. Go with your stuff.
Just play anything.
Just play a
Play
thing.
some Matt Hardy. Just play some Matt Hardy.
Just play a clip of Matt Hardy saying
Matt
something
Hardy.
insane.
I'll do a Matt Hardy thing. Bear with me. Here we go.
I had a premonition.
There we go.
Every time.
We had a premonition.
I love his premonitions.
There you go. You got a bed.
Oh.
Thank you.
It was the first one I came to.
Wow.
Well done.
So, Fantasy Wrestling Report now. Fantasy Wrestling began. It began as soon as SummerSlam 2016 ended. And it began with 11 teams.
Indeed.
We wanted 12. We nearly made it. We nearly made it to the target. We got 11.
11 is nearly 12.
And everyone, just about, once with a little bit of tweaking here and there, adhered to the rules. And we're underway with Fantasy Wrestling. And basically what's happened this week is because Impact Wrestling airs tonight in the United States, Turning Point, it will be a pay-per-view week because Turning Point is a TNA special. And because this show happens on a Thursday before that airs, then TNA will not count towards this week's point totals. We'll start afresh when it airs on Sunday next week. So basically what's counted towards this week's was this week's edition of Raw, SmackDown and NXT. Now, going live on the Facebook page very soon, you will see the league table. And it's very, very tight at the top, gents. We have a 5-way tie.
Ooh.
We have 5 teams all on 4 points. And
That doesn't sound good.
It's not good. But it's been a lower scoring week. Like I said, there's only been 3 programs counting when there would normally be 4. And it's not a pay-per-view week because SummerSlam did not count. You gained extra points on a pay-per-view week, you see. So, gents, you'll be pleased to know that your teams...
Obviously, my team's doing well because I picked
Forces
a
of Evil.
fantastic team. The Forces of Evil will dominate gloriously, Greg.
Well, you are joint top, Lewis.
Yes, I am.
And the Silent but Deadly,
Yes.
Silent Mark, also describing his bodily habits,
Indeed.
is joint top of the league table, along with Mew, what a puss, from our listener Alan Rideout. What kind of a name is that?
I have no idea.
Some of these names.
I have no
Some
idea.
of these team names are absolutely bizarre. Ryan Hunter, professional wrestler from Alpha Omega Wrestling, is joint top with a team called Forced Against My Will.
Nice.
If I were him, I would have gone with the Hunter Maniacs, just saying, but
I mean, this guy clearly, he's got a mentor called Xander Cooper in Alpha Omega Wrestling. Clearly, he's weak-willed.
He's been bullied into it, hasn't he?
He's been bullied into it.
Didn't even occur to me.
Xander Cooper has bullied him into joining our fantasy wrestling league. That's mental.
That as well.
And Shining Wizards are top as well. Our listener Shahin Najafipur, yes, he has 4 points as well. Top point scorers this week. Well, top points go to the star of the week. The star of the week every week gets 10 points for your team. And this week's star of the week, I'd like to play a clip, Mark.
Okay.
Was the gentleman who was on television speaking his mind in a quite sensational, or some might say, awesome style.
There's no gentle way to say it. To me, you wrestle like a coward. You wrestle like somebody who's afraid to get hit. Like,
I wrestle like a coward.
You wrestle like a coward.
I'm the one.
If I were to create a wrestler who, to me, like embodies, like when I was an independent guy and I was thinking like, oh, okay, what's the soft WWE style? It would be that. WWE is transformed in the last.
Hold on. You had your chance to talk. You're the one that called me a coward in the wrestling ring. I'm the coward in the wrestling ring.
Yeah.
But let's talk about cowards for 1 second. Okay. The reason I wrestle the way I wrestle is because I can do it day in and day out all the time for 10 plus years. I have never in my career ever have been injured. I don't get injured for 6 months to a year. I am here each and every week. But you sit there and call me a coward? Yeah. I'm the coward. Wait, let me tell you about a coward. Let me tell you about a guy.
Okay.
The Miz.
The Miz indeed.
What a performance. What a verbal performance. He destroyed Daniel Bryan. He went on, and you can watch the whole clip on our Facebook page. He went on to rip Daniel Bryan to shreds to the point that the SmackDown general manager walked off set. Making the point that we were making, perhaps a little bit more eloquently than you did, Lewis, I have to say, but making the point that we were making earlier about the fact that you need to work safe in the ring, you need to work smart, and it may not necessarily be what the fans want to see, but longevity and making money is what it's all about, and the Miz hit the nail on the head, and he is my star of the week. He gains 10 points. Fantastic. What a shame, though, that no team in our Fantasy Wrestling League picked the Miz. You're all a bunch of losers. You're all a bunch of cowards, in fact. You failed to pick the Miz, and so no points are given out this week. Sadly, the 10 points do not count. What a shame.
With that in mind, Charles Nelson Riley's just emailed in. The Miz has been a long-time favourite of mine, and his rant on SmackDown was 100% right. Working a safer style is definitely needed in WWE, as seeing guys like Rollins, Balor, et al. Getting injured all the time is going to get real old real quick. Nakamura is great, but people seem to forget that he injured Joe on TakeOver 2. Also, Balor is very good, but continuously overrated.
Yes.
Agreeing with both. Agreeing with both of you.
Well, I would do, but I would also point out that Charles Nelson Riley is in our fantasy league. He thought he'd be clever by picking a team full of women, thinking they would all be on television every week. He picked a team called Team Total Divas, and it completely backfired on him when Eva Marie got suspended and Sasha Banks got injured, and Nia Jax wasn't even on Raw this week. So, Yahoo sucks to you, Charles Nelson Riley.
There we go. Who was your dummy of the week?
Dummy of the week?
Yes.
Well, I have to say, dummy of the week is actually a tag team. And basically, again, the team captains in Fantasy Wrestling League missed a trick, because you score points for winning a television main event. Anyone who picked Roman Reigns this week got 3 points because he beat Chris Jericho in the Raw main event. Anybody who picks AJ Styles got 3 points because he beat Dolph Ziggler in the SmackDown main event. But the Authors of Pain, that awesome team under the management of Paul Ellering, were in the main event of NXT this week, 2 of them, and they won the main event. If you'd have drafted the Authors of Pain and Paul Ellering, you'd have picked up 7 points. Nobody did. And the team that they defeated at the NXT TakeOver special were the Australian duo of Nick Miller and Shane Thorne, known as TM61.
I don't get that.
TM61.
What's the 61 about?
What on earth is a TM61?
I don't
You're
know.
on the biggest show of your lives. These 2 good-looking, young, talented Australian lads, and they give themselves a name that makes literally no sense. Sorry, boys, you are my dummy of the week.
Dummy, yeah.
I will say it twice because there's 2 of you.
Hang on. I've got to get it again then.
Well, I thought you had done it twice.
Technical difficulties.
No.
We'll just say it's fine. It's fine.
I want to do it right, Lou.
You did do it right.
Do it right
It's
or
fine.
not at all.
We're just drawing attention to it. That just
But
Just
that's what
leave
we
it.
do. It's what
Just
we
leave
do.
it.
It's what we do.
Just leave it. I don't think anyone's onto us.
Dummy. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Are you happy now?
Yes, I'm happy now.
Shane Thorne and Nick Miller are my dummies of the week because they've got a silly team name. It's not marketable. Guys, you need to stand out. You've just arrived in NXT. You need to make an impression. What is wrong with embracing their Australian heritage? Are people scared of stereotypes in wrestling these days? It's just...
Have you seen wrestling? Of course not.
Bring back Outback Jack. That's what I say. Back in the day, if you had an Australian wrestler in the WWE, if you had an Australian tag team, they'd call themselves the Kangaroos. They'd be the Fabulous Koalas. They'd be, I don't know, neighbours. How about home and away? There you go. You could have Nick home and Shane away. And they could come out with surfboards and call everyone flaming galahs. Now that is embracing your Australian heritage. There's nothing wrong with it, Lewis.
You're saying that in the modern era of wrestling that they should call themselves home and away?
Why not? It's better than TM61. What could possibly... Is it Tasmania? I don't know. What does the TM stand for? It doesn't make any sense at all.
I believe they came from Pro Wrestling Noah, where they were known as the Mighty Don't Kneel, TMDK.
It's rubbish. They could call
But I don't know where the 61s come from.
One. They could call themselves Men at Work, and then they could come out, confront the Authors of Pain, and just smile and give them a Vegemite sandwich. They could do anything like that.
You're insane, Greg.
It would be fantastic. And we need, to me, I think we need more stereotypes in wrestling. And it's because we need to have... It's an entertainment business. You need character to stand out. You can embrace your heritage.
By filling wrestling with offensive stereotypes.
If Shinsuke Nakamura threw salt in people's eyes, I would give him more respect.
Why would he throw salt in people's eyes?
Although I don't actually know if that has
Why would he do
anything to
that?
do with Japan at all.
No.
It has nothing to do with Japan at all. But I'd still give him more respect. We need to go back to the days where the Iron Sheik could spit on the flag of America without a petition being started on change.org.
You can't do it in the modern era, Greg.
I don't understand why.
You can't fill wrestling
I don't get it.
with offensive stereotypes.
They're not offensive.
Well, they clearly are. That's why we can't do them.
Embrace your heritage. RJ Singh embraced his heritage.
Yeah, but...
Roddy Piper embraced his heritage. He wore a kilt.
A bit,
No
yeah.
one said that was an offensive
That
stereotype.
was quite a while ago.
It's about how you do it, Lewis. It's about how you do it.
Yeah, but the way you're proposing doing it sounds just like not even borderline offensive, just outright offensive.
Well, how come you can do it on home and away then?
What?
How come Al Stewart...
They're actual Australians on an actual Australian soap opera.
Al Stewart is offensive. Al Stewart comes out and calls people flaming galahs. I am suggesting...
I don't watch Home and Away.
I am suggesting that Nick Miller and Shane Thorne call people flaming galahs. There's nothing offensive about it. They are just embracing their heritage.
I'm glad you're not running a wrestling company anymore, Greg. I really am, honestly.
I am telling you, this is what needs to happen, and they are my dummies of the week. And I'm really sorry. I have to say, I'm really sorry to Evan Thompson of the Underdogs. He had a bad week anyway, because for some reason he decided to draft the Big Show, Kane, and The Undertaker, who are just not on television. I'm sorry, Evan, you lose 3 points for each of those because they're just not on TV at the moment. Well, I'm afraid you're the only person who drafted Shane Thorne, so you've lost 5 points there, and you're now on minus 15, and you're miles adrift at the bottom of the league. Sorry, you picked the dummy of the week.
So there we go.
Unlucky.
With that in mind, we do have to come to the big question of Finn Balor.
Yes.
Surely he's the dummy of the week anyway. Getting himself injured.
He embraces his heritage.
Having to relinquish his title.
He embraces his heritage.
No,
are
if
you
going off what you
that's offensive.
Going off what you said, Finn Balor should come out dressed as a leprechaun with a bowl of Lucky Charms.
Well, Hornswoggle
and
did.
if he did, he would have more credibility in my eyes.
Finley did.
Yes.
Was that offensive?
He's not a demon. He's a small Irish man.
I'm just saying, you need to find out. They need to do something to embrace their Australian heritage. I don't care what it is.
Come out with like wide brim hats with the corks.
Well, I tell you what, if Vince was in charge of NXT, that's exactly what they'd be doing.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway,
yeah.
Finn Balor, the Finn Balor question.
Yes.
Well, I got asked very nicely, I have to say, by Shaheen of the Shining Wizards, what happens with Finn Balor? Because he's now injured for 6 months and I've drafted him for my team. That means I'm going to lose points if he's not on television every week. Well, I considered
Should have picked a better wrestler, shouldn't you?
Well, you know what? He asked nicely, though. And the point about this, Lewis, is... I knew you'd start on this. I knew you'd think this was unfair.
Well, you said it was at your discretion.
It is at my discretion. My decision is final. I'm telling you, Finn Balor suffered that injury before the season started, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. He suffered that injury at SummerSlam before the season started.
I mean, I thought that the season... Initially, I thought it started at midnight, but if you are clarifying tonight that it started after SummerSlam, then yes, he suffered the injury before the season started.
I can change the rules if I want. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, he suffered injury before Raw anyway, which is when you started scoring points.
Okay.
So I am willing, because you asked so nicely, Shaheen, I am willing to allow you to replace Finn Balor on this occasion. I may not be so lenient in future, but I'm going to do it on several conditions. Those conditions are that you replace him with somebody from Raw, you replace him within your budget, and you forfeit the point that you scored for Finn Balor appearing on Raw this week. If you're not going to have him in your squad, then you must be willing to accept the fact you're not going to benefit from him being in your squad. And you've got to think about this, Shaheen. Think about this. What if WWE, every single week between now and Finn Balor's return, have him appear on Raw as they follow his diary to recovery? How stupid will you be then, Shaheen?
That totally sounds like something WWE would do as well. How stupid will you feel then if you have lost the chance to pick up a point from Finn Balor? How stupid will you feel if Finn Balor comes back 4 months ahead of schedule and suddenly wins every title under the sun and main events every pay-per-view under the sun, and you have got rid of him? So you need to consider these things very carefully, Shaheen. I will give you until Sunday at midnight to make your decision. And if you go on to the Facebook page, you will notice there are some new additions to the Raw roster. Some of the cruiserweights have been added. I have also added a major star from Raw who's doing particularly well at the moment, appearing every week. A local competitor. There's no one called a local competitor, Greg.
They are. If you look at the WWE website, every week they have a local competitor. Braun Strowman versus a local competitor.
You can't do that, Greg.
I can do that.
You can't. There's no one
£5
local
million.
competitor.
If you want a local competitor, you can have him.
You mean the guys that Braun Strowman comes out and destroys and decimates on
every
a weekly basis?
You watch the WWE.com videos, every week it's the same. Braun Strowman versus a local competitor.
This week it was a guy called Johnny Knockout.
A local competitor.
Okay.
You can draft him if you want.
This caught my evil eye this week. Johnny Knockout, okay, as Braun is making his way down to the ring, okay. Byron Saxton, I'm here with Braun's opponent, Johnny Knockout. Why are you doing this? Now, I feel like Mr. Knockout went off script here and thought, you know what? I'm never going to get on Raw again, so I might as well just have a laugh with it. Why are you facing Braun Strowman tonight, Mr. Johnny Knockout? There was an awkward silence, and Johnny Knockout said, because I like big, sweaty men. Live on Monday Night Raw.
He did say that.
Then Byron Saxton kind of looked a little bit taken aback and went, well, hopefully you'll still have a heartbeat after this, because presumably Johnny Knockout was supposed to feed him into that line. That's all I can guess. The guy's a hero.
He's a local competitor.
He's never going to work for WWE again, but he wasn't anyway, so...
You can draft him, Shaheen, if you want, or you can spend $20 million on someone, because that's what I'm basically saying. You can replace him within your budget. And Alan, if you're listening, Alan, who also drafted Finn Balor from Mew, what a puss, you've got to ask me nicely. You haven't been in touch, mate.
People have to ask you individually.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You've got to send me a really well-worded email. No spelling mistakes.
Wow.
And then I might consider doing the same for you.
Here
ends the Fantasy Wrestling Report for week 1. We move on to week 2 next week.
There we go. So tune in to the Facebook group for more information about that. I'm going to play a song. We'll be back in a second with... have you got more Evil Eye, Lou?
I don't know. Probably. There's other wrestling has happened that we haven't talked about yet.
We'll have a look. But there's the important thing.
I've got a bunch of Evil Eyes. I've got 2 of them, in fact.
But there's the important thing of Greg Lambert's dare from last week.
Ah.
Indeed.
That's more important.
Oh, yes.
We'll come back with that in a sec.
I could tear a telephone directory in two. Bending iron bars is something else.
Okay, so last week, Greg, I gave you a bit of a dare, shall we say?
Wrestling dares.
A wrestling dare.
Did you enjoy Adrian Street's theme tune, by the way?
It was very good. I enjoyed
Adrian
it.
Street, a great wrestler from the World of Sport era.
Yeah.
Stereotypes in wrestling. Bring them back. That's what we want. That's what
you want, clearly.
That's why I insisted on you playing that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So anyway, I bet you last week, I dared you last week to get Jonny Phere to do some poetry and record it for us for the show.
Yes, you did.
So
I succeeded.
So you succeeded.
I
You put some
succeeded
stuff
in my
on the
dare.
scene.
I don't believe it.
I got Jonny Phere to recite a poem. And I have to tell you, before you play this bit of audio,
Right.
I think you'll find that Wordsworth, Kipling, Shelley, and Keats combined don't top the oratory and the sheer moving and passionate and emotional quality of the wordsmithery of the Psychotic Warrior here. I think you're actually going to cry, Mark, Lewis.
Okay.
I really do think so. I think you better get your hankies at the ready.
I possibly might cry, but not for the reasons that you think I'm going to.
You need to give it a build-up.
I think he's overselling it.
Maybe. If this is you doing a terrible impression of Jonny Phere, then I don't think that counts.
Don't be ridiculous. No, this is in Jonny Phere. You asked me to get Jonny Phere to recite a poem live on air.
Mark has to
That is
sing.
what I have done. Play the footage and I'll prove it.
I'll play. Here we go.
You have the passion, you have the ambition, you have the intensity and dedication. I'm using it for motivation. I lost by disqualification.
There you go.
That
rhymes. That is Jonny Phere. That is Jonny Phere reciting poetry live on air.
I'm sorry, I'm not having that.
What do you mean?
That's not Jonny Phere reciting poetry. That's just clips of Jonny Phere that happened to rhyme.
No,
I'm not having it.
Look, I've got another one. I did another one just to prove it. I had a feeling you try and poo-poo my hard work.
Come on, okay, then
So
fair enough.
I've produced another one. Listen to this one. This will prove it.
Okay.
And I'm going to make them your physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. I'm speaking, of course, about Alex Shea.
Right, okay. Again,
Proof positive. There you go.
I'll be honest. I just respect the fact you've had enough time.
Play the third one just to hammer the point home.
All right, I'm still not having it, dude. But
want
You
hammer the
respect that
point
he's got
home.
enough time. I feel sorry for his wife.
yeah, fair enough. Okay, here we go.
Dedication, frustration, motivation, disqualification.
Right, I'm sorry, but no.
Wait, was that a haiku?
All right.
Jonny Phere recites poetry live on To Piss Off. This programme is scheduled for one fall. That's an acronym.
I'm not having
I wasn't
it.
Swearing.
I'm not having it. I can't let you have
I
that.
don't understand what you're getting at.
That's not Jonny Phere reciting poetry. That's
It
you.
was.
That's you getting bits of Johnny. Very well.
It's creative.
It's
I'll give
very,
you that.
very good.
I went up to him and I got him to do that to a tape recorder.
No.
That's obviously not the case.
Are you trying to say that I edited clips together off YouTube?
Yes.
Don't be
that, yeah.
ridiculous.
Well, it's either that
Who
or
would spend the time doing that?
it's either
Who,
that or
indeed?
you recorded him in one bit and then got him to stand over in a corner in an empty hall to do the next bit.
Well, I'm offended. I might do a Daniel Bryan and walk off set. I'm
think you should.
Happily.
I'm actually offended.
I think you
that
should walk off set.
That you would think that I would do that. You dared me man to man, Mark, and I have achieved. I have come through. I've done exactly what you asked me to do. You told me to get Jonny Phere to recite poetry on air. I've done it. That was poetry. It rhymed.
It rhymed.
I don't know. I don't know if I can do it.
I think we should ask the listeners. I think the listeners will back me 100%.
We've got a
8
few minutes. Yeah.
We've got 8 minutes of the show left.
What do you think, listeners?
I don't know if I can accept it. I've really got no idea.
Should we let the listener decide?
Yeah, let the listener decide. Quickly text in or email in 07399085508 or email studio@beyondradio.co.uk by 3 minutes to. I want an answer, and if not, I'm going to have to ask you to do it again.
Do it properly.
And do it properly,
What do you
yeah.
mean do it properly?
Do it actually.
Like
go
actually
to
get
him.
him to say some poems rather
And
than
if you think you can get away with that again, we want it videoed.
just because it'll be more funny.
Yeah,
You
of
want
course.
it video?
Yes.
Although the listeners won't be able to appreciate the brilliance.
I want to hear what
of
the listeners have
But
to
still.
say.
Yeah,
I want
we'll
to hear what the listeners
we'll
have
hear
to
what
say.
the listeners have to say. Get in
What do the
touch.
fans think?
07399085508 studio@beyondradio.co.uk. Whilst they're doing that, Evil Lewis, your evil eye for this week.
My evil eye for this week. I've got a bunch of evil eyes this week. I've told you about this, Mark. Come
We'll
on.
go on. Give us
Come
one.
on.
Then. Give us one.
I just there's so many. There's so many.
Okay.
Again, I've got to go back to Johnny Knockout. I've got to go back to Johnny Knockout. I don't know. What was that guy thinking? I actually want to find out. I actually care whether or not he went off script and decided, do you know what? I'm never going to work for WWE anyway, so I might as well just get on TV. It's live, so I can say whatever I like.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know. Would you do that?
Probably, yeah, to be fair.
If you were booked on a worldwide wrestling show,
Yeah.
to just get destroyed in a couple of minutes by a huge monster, and you got to do a live interview in ring, and you were told, right, and we want you to say this, would you go, maybe I'll just say something that I think's funny instead to, amuse my mates?
Of course I would.
That sounds like something you do.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
At the end of the day, that's your only chance you're ever going to be able to do that again.
Yeah.
He knows that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course I'd do that.
Exactly. That guy's now going to get so many independent bookings based on that.
Yeah.
He's never going to work for WWE, but he wasn't anyway. Come on, let's be realistic. Did you see that, Greg?
I did, and I thought he was he was verging on Star of the Week, I have to say.
Yeah.
But not quite as good as The Miz.
But nobody could have picked him. Because a local competitor isn't one wrestler. That's a series of wrestlers.
He is now.
We have got a text message, and I have got that much respect for him at this point that I'm using his name properly.
Okay.
Stallion says no. Lambert's pulling a fast one.
Well, he would say that. He's my commentary partner on Preston City Wrestling and the alpha male, apparently, of Alpha Omega Wrestling. He's never like me. He's got it in for me.
So far it's spoken.
And
the fans
he supports
have spoken.
Newcastle United, so I don't think he's particularly credible. I think you should discount that opinion.
No.
Is anybody else? Anybody else?
No, that's it so far.
Is that... look, right, okay. I'm going to need more time.
Okay.
Look, he won't return my calls. He won't speak to me. He's basically gone AWOL ever since Chris Ridgway pretty much single-handedly destroyed his shoulder as well at Vendetta. So he's not really going to want to allow me to come up to him and then suddenly say I wandered lonely as a cloud, is he? I mean, come on.
Greg, you're going to be...
It's a ridiculous dare.
Greg.
What do you expect me to do?
Greg, you're going to be at the Winter Gardens on September 17th, are you not, managing Nathan Cruz?
I will be, yes.
I would imagine Jonny Phere will be there also.
Well, he's in Comunicado.
I imagine Jonny Phere will be there also.
And other resorts.
Isn't that in Spain?
That was a couple of years ago when Jonny Phere was in Spain.
Okay.
The promo still exists on YouTube.
Okay.
I
watched it the other day. He ram slams an inflatable dolphin. It's well worth watching.
What was that about? Yeah, so I imagine you'll get an opportunity to cross paths with him.
Not that I was trying to edit any YouTube footage, though.
Of course, no. Why would you?
Of course.
Why would I?
Why would you?
Research purposes, Greg. Research purposes.
Yeah.
But I think you'll get a guaranteed opportunity to cross paths with him then, at least.
But I think his career's over. I just think he's disappeared. He's another one of his disappearing acts. He's gone AWOL. I just don't think we'll ever see him again. I think it's an unfair dare, and I think I should be given points for creativity.
Oh, no, you do get points for creativity.
Yeah.
It amused me very, very much.
And yeah.
But it doesn't mean you've done the dare. It doesn't mean you've won.
I need more time.
2 weeks left?
As Liam Gallagher would say.
I know. Again, I think...
He'd say it more like this, though. I need more time.
He'd stand like a banana whilst doing it as well. I think we could leave it standing and give him the opportunity to get it done almost in his own time.
Okay. We'll see how you do next week.
And obviously, I can't dare any of you two back until I get it done.
Not yet.
That's right.
Yeah. Unlucky.
Safe.
So,
Safety.
what are we watching for next week?
All the wrestling, Mark.
All of the wrestling.
All the wrestling.
There's going to be all of it.
Turning Point as well. Obviously, Fantasy Wrestling points up for grabs.
Yes.
Yep. Looking forward to seeing what happens with EC3 and Drew Galloway with Aaron Rex, the former Damien Sandow.
I'm looking forward to seeing...
rep.
Yep. I'm looking forward to seeing what words Matt Hardy can mispronounce for us this week.
Yes.
And how spectacularly he can do it. That's going to be that's the thing I'm looking forward to most.
And of course, the Cruiserweight Classic coming up very soon in the WWE Cruiserweight Classic. It's going to be an all-British clash in the quarterfinal between two close personal friends of mine, Noam Dar, Zack Sabre Jr., are going to show an international wrestling audience what British wrestling is all about. It's going to be fantastic.
Very, very good. We're looking forward to that. So that's the end of the show for this week, ladies and sirs. Thank you all very much for listening and tuning in. Catch up on the podcast if you haven't been able to listen to episode 1. Get in touch with our Facebooks and our Twitters. But thank you very much for listening. For my colleagues, Mr. Eva Lewis.
Goodbye.
And Mr. Greg The Truth Lambert.
Goodbye.
There we go. Thank you very much. My name's been Silent Mark. This program is scheduled for one fall, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.